Welcome to a new altcoin update, and today we're going to talk about everything that's happening in the markets. We've had a pretty swift correction after a pretty heavy rush upwards. Bitcoin rallied from 27k to 30k, it went back to 27k and then back up to 30k. And we've got the indices who are volatile as well. And we've got some results coming in when it comes about banks in itself. First Republic Bank on the brink of a collapse. That's what we're going to discuss today in the altcoin update. But before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also check out our public Discord where you can find everything when it comes to my altcoin portfolio, which I trade publicly on YouTube. On these weekly updates, I'll be providing you all the information that I have when it comes to those, as we are going to have an outlook for the altcoins as well in this update. Then we are also going to launch our course at the end of June. Make sure to whitelist yourself, which you can find in the description beneath. And if you whitelist yourself, you'll be able to potentially win one of those courses. It's going to be approximately 6 hours of content, and it's an all-round beginner's course when it comes to crypto. So I'll be discussing everything in the ecosystem: DeFi, Ethereum, Bitcoin, the layers, ICOs, and more. I'll also be diving into TA, FA, and a portfolio build-up, so make sure to whitelist yourself for the course. Then, when you know about the altcoin videos, we also have our altcoin portfolio, which I'm not trading too much yet, but we have started with around $1,000. Since I've started making the weekly updates a month ago, the level was around $850 at that moment in time. Right now we're around 800 as the markets are still cooling off a little bit. The total portfolio at the start was 1K. We have invested $250 in Chainlink, 200 in Atom, 150 in Curve, 100 in RSR, 200 in Lux, and 100 in AXS. Out of this pack, we have made 2 trades. We have started taking profits on Chainlink, and as that one started to rally up, and then we swapped that towards Lux and Curve, as Lux is the one that having the most or the highest loss here. I think Lux has dropped around 60%, resulting into a massive correction. The current valuations are Chainlink at 178, Atom at 165, Lux at 137, Curve at 156, RSR at 85, and AXS at 76, through which the valuation is around $800. And we're going to look at the portfolio later in this update. First, we're going to dive into some news-related items, and there's not much news when it comes to the altcoin markets. But if you look at the news and you're going to start investigating into it, then the news might be important about the markets overall. So the first topic that I would like to discuss with you is the First Republic Bank, which has been collapsing during this entire week. It has been collapsing in the fact that the valuation has dropped by more than 50% on a single day, and you could question yourself, why did we see such a heavy correction taking place on the markets? The past few weeks we've had earnings coming in, and usually earnings are a season where tech takes over, so everybody is focused on Tesla, Apple, Amazon, all those companies. Tech is doing really well. That's why the Nasdaq has been rallying upwards. But then there's also those bank earnings, and a month ago we've had 3 banks falling apart. Silicon Valley Bank and 2 other ones, Signature as well. They all were classified as crypto banks, and the US government stated that they were related to it and that they might be fallen over due to the fact that they were related to crypto. Now, there were also a few other banks into trouble during that period. First Republic Bank was one of them, and First Republic Bank dropped massively during that period as well. Now, the earnings came in, and the earnings shown that there was more than 100 billion in customer deposits lost by First Republic Bank, and as a result, there is a snowball effect and a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is that more people start to withdraw their money from the bank, and that is literally causing the markets or the bank to fall over, and that's what is represented into the chart. So it lost over 50% in one day, more than as it has been losing more than 100 billion in in funds. And when we look at the other price data, we can see that First Republic Bank has lost 95% in the past month, and the bank is literally on the brink of falling apart. So what is happening right now? The regulators are racing to save First Republic Bank after share price collapse. US officials, and there was another added note to it, they are coordinating urgent meetings to rescue First Republic Bank. And then you can question yourself, hey, should banks actually be saved, or should banks be falling apart so the system can save itself or help itself? That's a question overall you could take, but the US officials are understood to be coordinating urgent talks to rescue First Republic Bank after efforts by private sector banks failed to reach a deal so far. So they try to at least rescue First Republic Bank. This didn't work out yet, so probably the data that they got from First Republic Bank was worse than expected. And additionally, they have also provided a solution for First Republic Bank in March in the first place, as First Republic Bank has been getting 30 billion at the bank on March 16th to rescue itself and to pull off a regional banking crisis. As some extra feel on this, First Republic Bank is the 13th bank of the United States. We've already lost the number 16 and 17. Now it's the 13th bank on the edge of collapsing. We also know that Credit Suisse was taken over by UBS. So we are on the brink of a big depression and recession, and the banks are actually not looking good at this point because of the heavy impact of the hiking policy from the Fed. But you could also argue that the entire fractional reserve status is not working out if there are so many big shocks taking place. Why is this important for crypto? Overall, DeFi is going to surge out of this. If you are having self-custody and you are able to borrow and lend and save through your own wallet, with being able to transfer whenever you want, being able to decide what you want with it, and where you put it for yourself, so you are you're not required to fill in a ton of papers when you want to withdraw all the money. That is going to be an important indicator here for the market. So you have to keep an eye on DeFi in the coming years, as Bitcoin has again been surging after this news. A month ago, crypto crashed a little bit, but then surged even more because of the fact that when banks start to fall apart, people really want to switch towards crypto. So this is bullish overall on the long term. DeFi will only start to grow. And that's why keeping an eye on these news data or these news events is super important from here. Then next week on Wednesday, I'll be live at 7:30 p.m. because the Fed is going to announce their policy adjustments, or at least if they are going to continue their rate hikes. Most likely it's going to be 25 bips, and then the future outlook will be important. Bank of Japan has been reducing that by a little bit, hence why the Nikkei index has been rallying up. A second important topic is the fact that if you rate hike, then the government needs to pay more in interest themselves on their own papers and on the money that they borrow, which means that their annual payments are higher due to the increased rate hikes or increased interest rates as well. And that is causing troubles when it comes to the debt ceiling. So Janet Yellen has said that the US debt ceiling needs to grow or needs to go up again, or we will have an economic catastrophe. Simply because US is still making more debt than that they earn, and they can't keep on paying, which means that she sounded the alarm on the urgent need for the Congress to raise the government's debt ceiling, warning that failure could trigger an economic catastrophe. That is important to keep an eye on for the coming weeks and for the coming months. She is arguing that raising or suspending the existing borrowing cap of 31 trillion is the Congress' responsibility. She asked lawmakers to act immediately to avert potential economic and financial market disruptions. So Kevin McCarthy, another Republican majority leader in the House of Representatives, recently suggested that a plan that would combine 4.5 trillion expenditure cuts with a 1.5 trillion rise in the debt limit. You will be having a cut if the rates are going to go down. So these two are combined, which makes sense that from the 25 bips rate hike, probably we will not be continuing the hikes at all, and that could result into more relief on the markets. So this is something to watch for the next weeks. It's the most important topic probably for markets, but what are the markets actually look like, or what do they look like at this point? Let's get to the charts. When we look at the markets, we first have to look at the Bitcoin dominance, and the dominance is still rallying up, which is comparable to the pattern that we have been witnessing in 2019, in which we witnessed a case of consolidation, then a further rally, which was mainly due to Libra, but we had this run taking place, resulting into altcoins crashing against Bitcoin, finding higher time frame support, and from there we started to change the pattern, and we had a pretty good period from September onwards to September 2020 when we had a new surge. Here we are making a sideways pattern. We have been seeing peaks in July 2021, November 2021, June 2022, and now we're facing ourselves again in June 2023 to potentially have a new high here, as there is currently still some weakness again on Ether against Bitcoin, but overall altcoins have been continuing the correction, falling downwards against Bitcoin and also against Ether, which means that Bitcoin is still the one showing strength. Bitcoin will continue to do so unless there is additional confidence in the markets, which I've been describing previously, that if there is more confidence in the markets, altcoins will continue to rally, but right now we don't have that yet, especially since the correction we've witnessed during this week. So we're waiting for the dominance to reverse. We are getting into a period where the dominance is hitting resistance points. We can still have some slight more continuation here, but we're getting into a period of potential resistance. This also means that Ether against Bitcoin is still showing weakness. I mentioned before, here in September 2022, we had the run of the merge created by a ton of hype. What do we have here? We've had the Shanghai upgrade taking place at 0.62. We had a bottom from there, and since then prices have been rallying up for a little bit. However, in order to actually have additional strength, Ethereum needs to break this resistance point that we have here at 0.069. We can see that based on the weekly time frame, we reject this block, we reject again, another rejection, another one, and here again, which means that the trend remains to be downwards. And if the trend continues to fall downwards, there is a likely outcome that we have one more correction taking place all the way towards this block that we have here around 0.055. And as a result, that's not the right one. As a result, we can see that Ether against Bitcoin might be likely to continue this fall before we hit a massive support zone, or when we flip this level. That is when you can argument altcoins will start to continue showing strength. At this point, they don't do that yet, but we are waiting for it. So what is going to happen when it comes to the markets? If Bitcoin breaks above 30k, we've got the first ingredient for confidence in the altcoins. Bitcoin breaking above 30k is a signal of strength for the market, and as a result, most likely altcoins will follow suit if Bitcoin starts to consolidate after that breakout. So if Bitcoin breaks out, this one might be falling from here 0.65 to 0.55 because of the impulse that Bitcoin makes from there. When we're looking at the total market cap, we can argument that we are still into a bullish structure. Why is that? Well, we've hit crucial resistance, but we are not breaking through it yet, but we are also holding crucial support, through which it means to me that as long as we stay above here, we are good to go and continue upwards. If we are having another resistance test here, most likely we are going to have a run towards 1.8 trillion, which is already a run of 50 to 80%. So the total market cap, and if we include the moving averages, we can see that the 200 is beneath us, the EMA 200 is also beneath us, The 100 is above us still, but we're going to have a cross taking place in the next few months. And as a result, these moving averages are also coming here in this block, meaning that we sustain continuation of support there and most likely are going to continue the rally. And the actual expansion is going to happen here when we break above this resistance point, which is very comparable to Bitcoin breaking above the level that we have here, 30k. If this breaks, we're going to see this strong push to the upside, and as a result, altcoins are most likely going to follow through, and then they have the expansion that we are all waiting for, especially since retail is mostly into altcoins. When we're looking at the total altcoin market cap, which is the total 2 chart, we see that the moving averages are also beneath us. As long as we sustain support above it, everything seems to be fine. And when we're looking at the current case, we are definitely seeing that Bitcoin is showing more strength than altcoins at this point, and they really need to regain this important level if we want to have continuation. In this case, I clearly want to see the altcoins regain the level at 615 billion. If we do, then we most likely are going to make new highs at this point. So Ether against Bitcoin is still showing weakness. We are having a slight bounce, but Bitcoin is all depending here. If Bitcoin is going to break to the upside, we've got the first ingredient. The second ingredient is when Ether against Bitcoin starts to show strength, and then you can see altcoins continuing the momentum. When we talk about the portfolio, you can see the current portfolio here, which is at $800. We are down a bit, unfortunately. The valuations are clearly, as I mentioned in the beginning of this update, which is 178, 165 for Atom, 156 for Curve, and etc. We've had a few trades in the past week. We have not been making any trades at all. So we're going to look at a few of those charts to see where we stand. And additionally, I'll explain a little bit on where we are in the cycle. So when we're looking at charts, we can see that Atom against Bitcoin has some price action in the chart. What does it show? Well, it clearly shows that since September of 2022, the path has been downwards for Atom against Bitcoin. That is usually not the period where you want to start selling your position. It doesn't mean that we have to continue going up from here or that we continue to fall. You're just going to DCA into the position overall, especially since we are making this consolidation here. There is an argument to be made that we're going to reverse, but there's also one more level around 2,700 here that we're looking at. But overall, altcoins are looking at a bottoming procedure instead of a downwards further procedure. So when we're looking at Atom against ETH, we can argument the same. It is once again back into a range that we have been acting in for 5 years, for two years, in which we have been making support or the low in December 2020. Then we've touched it in May again in November. Last year, June, we've also been reaching this, and now we're looking at a similar procedure in which we are looking at a case of bottoming for Atom against ETH. And Atom against ETH says that, okay, if we are having Atom against Bitcoin at support, that is most likely a trigger that it will outperform Bitcoin. Then we've got Atom against ETH at support as well. Then we've got an argument that Atom is going to outperform ETH as well. What do we need for that? We need Bitcoin to break 30k. We need ETH against Bitcoin to bounce back upwards. And then the altcoins will start to follow suit. But first, we need Bitcoin to break above 30k. And in this case, it looks quite clear that we are back into the support ranges for Atom overall. Now, when we're looking at Chainlink, we can argument the exact same. Chainlink is all the way back towards the range low against Ether as well, which is an ingredient for a potential support test, and is also an ingredient that we're going to look at a more likely upwards run than downwards run at this point. So the valuation of Chainlink against Ether is relatively low at this point, and it requires some time, but then you will be seeing the expansion taking place. Chainlink against Bitcoin is back again on a massive support level. As I mentioned before, Bitcoin or altcoins are most likely going to have one more sweep before the altcoins start to pace up. So this is maybe even going to get a lower drop towards 1500 on Chainlink against Bitcoin. Doubt it, but we are looking at a very important support level here. When we're looking at the USDT valuations, especially Atom is consolidating nicely. There's no real point of there is a downtrend, but you can argument that we are sustaining on a crucial support level here, and most likely will continue to do so, and the actual strength start to kick in once we break through 1250. My take profits are still the same, so I'm still looking at $15.50 and $16 from here, but I think my entries should have been way better. We're just positioning for a long still at this point, and especially Atom is looking quite good. When we're looking at curve against Bitcoin, we get the same argumentation. We are back towards the range lows, which we have been testing in the previous year for multiple times, which means that you don't really want to start selling your positions here. You want to stay put into your altcoins, as also curve against ETH is currently on the range lows again. Curve against USDT is still consolidating, so I'm not interested into selling the position here. I'm just waiting it out, and it goes for all the positions. If you want to stay tuned on the altcoin portfolio, make sure to join the public Discord. Thank you for joining on this video. On Tuesday we'll be back with a new update on the Bitcoin markets. On Wednesday I'll be going live with the Fed meeting. Make sure to tune in at 7:30 p.m. and have a wonderful weekend. Ciao.